Now on table 2 here, I had Queen 10, and it's quite a standard fold for a lot of people, but it's also a situation where a lot of people will call on the button with Queen 10 against the raise, and it's just terrible. You're never going to be able to hit a really big flop and get paid, and you're always going to lose. It's reverse implied odds. You're going to lose a lot of money by, when you do hit, being dominated against another hand. The only way I would play Queen 10 in position on a button is by raising it or folding it. There's just no other way to play Queen 10, because you can't take any aggressive action at any point in the hand unless you hit a huge hand, and if so, it's very rare that you're going to get paid. All those mediocre hands like Queen 10 and Ace 10 and Jack 10 and King 10, they're all quite hard to make a lot of money on, so I play them very cautiously. Now here, this is where we make a mistake, and I wanted to include mistakes because everyone makes them. I dwelled about raising here, and for some reason I didn't, and I just called to see a flop. I'm out of position with Queen 10. I don't want to be in that spot because it's very hard to play out of position. And also, Kabata Joe is in the small blind. He's just called in the small blind, and against Mudbone, who we've already seen is very aggressive and quite spazzy. Kabata Joe would have 3-bet with any premium hand there to try and get as much money in the pot pre-flop as possible against Mudbone. As he didn't, we can tell that Kabata Joe doesn't have a strong hand. We also know that Mudbone has got a very wide range. Therefore, by squeezing there with Queen 10, not playing the hand for its value, but just trying to push people off the pot pre-flop, I think it's going to work a lot of the time. As it was, I just called and we hit a 9-9x flop, and against the Dongley we can't really do anything there, so we're stuck. And we would have only been able to continue playing that passive line if we'd actually hit a hand. So I like squeezing there a lot better than how I played it. And again, we can see Jack Queen. It's just, you know, playing out of position with it. It's so hard. Even when you do hit, you're not going to get maximum value, and you're going to lose a bigger pot if you are against a better hand, because they have position on you, so you can take an aggressive line. That's why it's just quite a simple fold in the small blind. Here on we've got the same situation here, where Mudbone's on the button and Kabata Joe's in the small blind on table 2, and he makes a normal $1.25 raise. Now, this is a very standard raise for him, and he's going to have maybe 60% of hands here on the button, 70% of hands, even more perhaps if he's playing really loose. We're raising King Queen here for value. If he starts full betting us, we're going to get worried with King Queen. We'll probably have to let it go, because we've only seen him play passively loose, not aggressively loose pre-flop. So when he calls here, he can have a very wide range of hands, and our best flop would be hitting a queen or a king, in which case we're not going anywhere against this certain player. Choosing flops is to bluff on is key to poker, especially when playing tight aggressively, because you need to know when you're going to fold your hand. Sorry, when your opponent is going to continue in the hand and when they're not. If you think your opponent's range has hit the board, and you don't have a hand, then obviously it's a bad time to bluff, because if you start bluffing then and they've hit their range of cards, so like here with a 6-9, 8-9 flop, Mudbone, any 10 he's continuing, any 7 he's continuing, any hit, so 6, 8, 9, 10, probably even any 5, any flush draw, and he may even float with something like Jack Queen as well. So it's a really horrible flop for us to continue on, and the only way we're going to make any money from this is by if we hit a queen or a king on the turn, and in that case we might get some money. We might even be behind if he has flopped a huge monster. So here it's a terrible flop to continue with. He's going to play back with a lot of hands, a lot of draws, and a lot of made hands, just like ace-9 or 8-10 or anything like that. So it's a very simple check fold. There's no point including wasting more money into the pot. We just let Mudbone take it for this time, and pick a better spot later, which I'm sure we'll find. Assigning opponents a range is vital, and here you see he had a very wide range. Jack 7 calling 3-bets pre-flop. He hit the flop, and I don't think he was going to be going anywhere, even if I did choose check raise. And just for your information, I think a check raise would be terrible there, as you're just firing money at him, and you don't want to give the fish lots of money. So here we've got two hands that are going to be played out on table 3 and table 4. On table 3 we have 9-10. A lot of people here are just going to call and see a cheap flop or even fold. But this is a great spot to isolate. You have two limpers, and both limpers are going to be limping a very weak range. I just quickly checked notes to see if they did limp aces or kings or anything like that to trap, and they don't. So by isolating here, isolating big, we're hoping to just get it heads up against one of them, or preferably get them both to fold. And 9-10 plays quite well on the flop as well. We have position, so we can outplay a lot of times. Now here's a really horrible situation. We flopped a straight draw, which is fantastic when we're isolating a limper, but the original limper's just shown strength. Now his range of hands here could be anything from an ace-x, or even ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack. He could even be limping with something like jack-8 or 8s. He could have the same hand as me, 9-10, and he could have flush draws. Now against all of those hands, he's going to be continuing. He's not going to be folding anything unless he's donk lead bluffing with something like 10 king or an absolute airball, or maybe like 9s where he doesn't know what he's doing and he just wants to bet. In that case we're going to get a fold if we jam, but in every other situation he's going to call. Even if he calls with a flush draw, we're going to be dominated by the queen flush draw, the king flush draw, and not in very good shape even if he has a lower flush draw. So there's really no fold equity for us to push him off the hand, and when we do get it in, we're only going to be a 30% favourite, 30% dog. So there's just absolutely no warrant to playing this hand aggressively. This hand's just a simple fold, as we're going to lose money if we do go all in. And obviously there's no way we can flat call when he's going to be jamming the turn a huge amount of the time. This is because we're basically only getting 16% chance to hit our straight draw, and even then the heart might kill us if he has a flush draw. So it's just best to let it go. Now a lot of the time in poker, it's key, especially when you're playing tight aggressively, to make notes on players. One way you can make notes, which is a quick and easy way of reviewing your notes, is using the icons. Now the icons are just below, they're in the notes window to the right of your table, and I make note on when an opponent is easy to 3-bet and when they're not easy to 3-bet. This makes it easy for me to target my weak players with my tight aggressive image. I suggest everyone does that as well. On table 1 here, you can see that Mudbone has a cross under his name, and that means that he's not a guy you should be 3-betting light, because he's going to call a lot of 3-bets. If you've got someone else who has a tick, who I have a tick next to, that means that they are easy to 3-bet, as they do fold a lot of 3-bets, and that's especially effective against people if they're out of position, as no one wants to play out of position, so they'll fold a lot, so you can raise them off a lot of pots pre-flop and bluff them. Here with ace queen, a lot of players would just call here and trap, and then hope to hit their ace or the queen. Again, that's terrible when you're playing a tight aggressive style of play. You really should be jacking this up now. You've got the best hand a lot of the time, and even if you don't have the best hand, it's easy to get rid of. If someone 4-bets you here, you can just fold your ace queen quite easily. By 3-betting, you're pushing out the small blind, because a lot of the time he's going to be very, very weak if he just calls in the small blind. So you're getting yourself heads up with a good hand. Here we miss our flop. We don't hit our ace or a queen, but it's not a terrible situation. The flop's king 6-3, and as opposed to the previous hand we had with Mudbone, when the flop was the 9-8-6, I believe, with 2 spades, this is a very dry board. Now this doesn't hit his range, whereas the other hand did. His range, as you saw, was like Jack 6, 10 Jack. It could even be like as good as Ace Jack, but I mean, he could have a king as well. But the fact is that it doesn't hit a lot of his range. Nearly all of his range is missed. So for anything like 7, 8, 9, 10, any 10, any 5 for the straight cards, it's a fantastic flop for us to bet, and it is within our range after 3-bet and pre-flop. We could easily have a king here after 3-bet and pre-flop. So it's a very simple c-bet, and Mudbone, even though he's quite crazy, he's going to fold off a lot of his hands because he knows it's not a good flop for him to bluff at or continue with. So those dry flops are the ones the dry flops with a high card are the ones that you can really represent after 3-betting pre-flop, and you can take down with continuation bets a lot of the time. Here on table 1 again, we have Queen 10 suited. Again, this is not a hand you want to be just flat calling position with, and this makes the size of Donkey Punch's stack makes it even easier for us to 3-bet, because against his stack size, which is 50 big blinds here, he's going to be either 4-betting or folding. He might be bad enough to just call pre-flop, but if he is, we get the chance to take it off him on the flop. If he had something like 15 big blinds, or if he had $15 or $20, so 30 or 40 big blinds, then a 3-bet here wouldn't be so great, because if he jams, we're almost priced into call against his range of hands, and so we're always going to be getting him bad there. In which case, we should just elect to fold. As it is, he's going to either jam or fold, and if he jams, we can easily make a fold with no pot odds to call. So that's an easy way. And it doesn't matter if we have Queen 10 there or Jack 3, it's still the same situation. If you're against a player whose only options are to jam all in or fold, it doesn't matter what your cards are, you're either going to be calling his all in with a good hand or folding with a bad hand. In this very last hand on table 1, we can see that this is a much better flop for us to double barrel. It misses all of his mid-range, like 7-8, ace, jack, all the things you'd just be check calling the flop with, and we can really represent a queen. This sort of flop is great, whereas again, the time before against Mudbone, it wasn't. Flop selection for bluffing and continuation betting is absolutely crucial. So this brings us to the end of the session. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Any feedback would be greatly appreciated, and hopefully you'll all tune in for part 3, where I'll detail even more situations in which the tight aggressive style is profitable.